Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 225th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We got a ton to talk about today. We are going to start with a great poem from our laureate, Mimi Gurman, who's also going to fill us up on the wild doings in Waldport, Oregon. World-class situation there, let me tell you. We're then going to be joined, I think, by SUSIE Shannon. We're going to go in to the depths of the current iteration of the homeless crisis, including and we're going to run through some of the nightmare of this giant travesty of a budget bill that's now in front of the U.S. Senate. We'll talk a bit about how that impacts homelessness, among much, much else. In the second hour, we're going to be joined by Daniel Blackman, a candidate for the Utilities Commission in Georgia, where a $40 billion nuclear plant is about to completely bankrupt the state. And we're going to be joined by the great Carl Grossman, who's going to talk to us a bit about how all that impacts nuclear and the future of energy. We're also going to, there's a big wind farm that is about to go in, about to restart construction. It's about a third done, south of Long Island, New York, which everybody has been shocked because Trump has actually reversed course and given it a green light, and everybody's trying to figure out why. So we got a ton to go here. We're really going to get deep with Mike Hersh into this budget bill, which has got everybody completely in a tizzy. We're starting with 51 people, and we will go for 2 hours and 20 minutes until the legendary 4:20 p.m. California time. Right now, it's just after 5 Eastern time. Those of you who can see on the Zoom behind me is the outdoor classroom where I used to teach at Capital University in Bexley, Ohio. It was a wonderful place, and this is a wonderful place. So let's get rocking and rolling here. We'll start with Mimi Gurman. She's going to give us a poem, and then we're going to take a tour of the astonishing political landscape in Waldport, Oregon, which is really an allegory for what's happening in America. We had a purge attempted by an extreme right-wing city council who tried to get rid of a wonderful mayor, and they had no idea what they were getting into. So Mimi is going to give us a rundown on that, and then if SUSIE Shannon comes, we'll talk about homelessness, and we're going to also talk about this gargantuan budget bill. I almost called him Bush. Trump is putting forward. I do want to note before we proceed that our sympathies and go out to the people who were marching in Boulder, Colorado, who were firebombed. I spent a ton of time in Boulder, and that is really a nightmare, a horrible situation. I hope everybody is well with that. Okay, Mimi G, there's a thing to call you. You're in rattlesnake country,
I'm in
and
rattlesnake country.
we hope you got your leather boots on. And let's hear your poem, and then we're going to visit the situation in Waldport, Oregon. Please.
So I had to take a break from writing about the political. And in writing this poem that I'm about to read you called The Farmer, I realized that it too is political. So, all right, The Farmer. The farmer looks out by the edge of her field, watching where water from the quiet springs fold into earth. She watches, patient like the wind. Sturdy her frame to the slant of shovel, waiting. Water slows against a mound. She frees a path, spade by spade, between the eager lap of bees waiting for clover to redden the fields. Like all farmers, since the ancient spokes, from the Tigris and Euphrates to China's Yellow River, Khuzestan to the Indus Valley of Asia, the Hohokam and Zanya Valley in the Americas, She learns how water breathes, rising with the tidal moon, weaves, then flows into time, then seed. Meadowlark sings her song to the afternoon of elms. Ducks take to the wet shade from sun. Dog watches from above the hill. Soon the light will dim, water merging into stars.
Whoa, water merging into stars. I like that. That's very cool. Thank you, Mimi. A
You're welcome.
pleasure as always. You are great. We're up to what do we got here? 64 people. When I'm 64, will you still need me? Will you still feed me? When I'm 64, that's one of the great lines of American or of Western poetry. So, folks, we have been, a number of you are new, and you're new to this drama that we are following, which is quite emblematic of what's happening in America. Mayor Heidi Lampert, who is of indigenous extraction, was recently elected mayor, and the right-wing city council had her six of them unanimous, plus a horribly whatever city manager assaulted this woman physically as well as verbally. One person said she should be extinguished,
It's
exterminated, and
exterminated. Yeah.
they had her arrested. They had the mayor arrested for
For
no good reason.
mayoring. Well, for mayoring.
Yeah, for mayoring, daring to mayor, mayoring under the influence of democracy.
Mayoring
And
with
the whole
malice
thing has
aforethought.
become, yes, the whole thing has become an astonishing drama in modern day American democracy. And Mimi has come to the aid and comfort of the mayor, who's not going to be with us today, but will be with us next week. And the hits just keep on coming. Mimi, can you update us now before we go to Trump's big bad disaster here? Can you update us on the latest developments in the saga of Waldport, Oregon?
Yeah, I'll do another brief summary for everybody because there's so much. So this all began, Heidi and I have been friends for a couple decades. We met through the anti-nuke movement and through the events of Fukushima. And Heidi's originally from Hanford, and her father was a nuclear engineer at Hanford. And we have a lot in common with our political activism. So when I heard that Heidi was in trouble, not, of her own doing, I said, how can I help? So this is how it began. People sent Heidi, Heidi Lambert, the mayor of Waldport, letters in the mail, actual letters of complaint against the city manager of Waldport, whose name is Dan Cutter. And those letters were addressed to the mayor. Heidi heard about the letters, but didn't receive the letters. So she went to the office to retrieve the letters, only to find out that two staffers had opened those letters and scanned them into an email that was only to go to Dan Cutter. Dan Cutter had gone to the staffers, also hearing about these letters that were addressed to Heidi, and asked the staffers to scan them and only send the letters of complaint against him to him. So Heidi was upset and said, I need those emails. I need the scanned emails and I want the letters. To which they said, you cannot have them because the city manager told us you can't have them. That started the excuses from city council to rid themselves of Heidi as mayor, illegally and unconstitutionally.
And Heidi had just been elected last fall to
Right.
be the mayor. And there are six members of the city council. They're all basically MAGA types. And then the city manager is an employee of the city, and he is now starring in the role of Donald Trump. So go ahead, please.
Okay, so they decided, since Heidi wanted those letters, that they would make up something saying that she spoke harsh words, which is really, really funny because if you know Heidi, Heidi doesn't use harsh language ever. It's just not in her to do it. So they made this story up that Heidi used harsh words to these two staffers, one of whom has a mother on the city council. And they voted without due process to de-elect her. Within days of this happening, not in a city council meeting. It was a special call out. They didn't follow the rules for even that because they don't know the rules. And if they do know the rules, it doesn't matter. You get the point. So they de-elect her. Then they told her that if she shows up to the next council meeting as mayor, and sits in her chair, they will arrest her. Well, she went. And she went to sit in her chair. But the city council had removed her chair, literally, like there was no chair. So as the mayor, Heidi asked the audience, the people in attendance, does anyone have a chair that I can use to take my spot as the mayor? Because I do not acknowledge my de-election from the city council. So somebody brought her a chair, at which point the city I think it was Dan Cutter, asked the sheriff to arrest her. And then the sheriff arrested her. At some point.
Okay, so this is the sheriff arresting the mayor
Yes.
at the order of the city manager, who's an employee of the mayor.
Exactly. And so the DA dropped the charges with a letter to the city council stating that what Heidi was doing was in her role as mayor. So they dropped the charges against her. And a letter from the district judge came in, which said, what you've done is unconstitutional. And I'm going to be looking into this rule that you said you were basing this de-election on. So and that she was reinstalling Heidi, at least temporarily, as the mayor as of that point. To which the city council said, well, since we clearly aren't safe because the DA isn't doing their job by arresting the mayor, we can't hold city council meetings anymore until this whole thing is resolved. Well, Heidi's lawyer wrote a letter to the city council saying, in accordance with the ruling that the judge presented to the council, if the council refuses to allow the mayor to do her job, they will be in contempt of court. So the council, after 2 more sessions of not having council, had their first council meeting, and they allowed Heidi to run it. Then the city council decided that they were going to countersue because they knew that Heidi was bringing had an attorney looking into the unconstitutionality of this case. So in the countersuit, which never really became an actual lawsuit, the city's attorney said that he can't represent them because they have no case. This is an assumption that we're making because the city council won't exactly tell us what the city attorney said. But we know this because then the city council went out to get another attorney to represent them, one who would cost just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is also illegal. So that attorney, this was now, we're into last week. That attorney must have said something to them like, you have no lawsuit here and I can't represent you. And again, we don't know this because the city council hasn't coughed up that letter and shown us what the lawyers actually said. But what they decided after 3 times during that day to have counsel, not have counsel, have counsel, not have counsel, was to have counsel. And Heidi went in. They had told Heidi they didn't want her in there. Then Heidi went, and they told Heidi that she is now completely reinstated as the mayor by the city council, and there's no longer a case against her.
So Mimi, this is a if we can wrap this right now, because we want to continue this saga. So the what we have now is the City Council of this is a democracy, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we're dealing with this. The City Council has been their bluff has been called. The mayor is instated. There are all sorts of legal things going on, and this would be a great victory for democracy if Heidi prevails and these 6 people suddenly face a recall and the town of Waldport, Oregon is restored to democracy. We're hoping something similar happens in the United States of America as a whole, which is one of the reasons we're following this case. So can you give us a quick summary, and then we're going to move ahead.
Okay, so now where we're at is she has been reinstated permanently as the mayor, but the city refuses to say they've done anything wrong. And in this, right now, what's happening is the Heidi's attorney, in trying to recoup money for defending Heidi, has been told by the city that because they dropped the case against her, which was never really a case, it was, you know, this unconstitutional de-election, that he can't, her lawyer cannot be paid by the city as
Okay.
what's the word, Mike? So anyway, death threats have occurred through somebody who is related to Greg Dunn against Heidi. Greg Dunn is the city manager. There were death threats, and they haven't ceased in just dissing Heidi at every turn.
Okay.
So there's slander ongoing. So that's where we're at. Heidi wins.
And mail fraud.
And mail fraud and conspiracy.
Violence. So
yes.
this is an allegory we've been following. We're going to follow it again. Mimi's really made a huge difference here, and we want to emerge from this with a reborn democracy in Waldport, Oregon. And one of the ways since we're following this is because this is America. This is a democracy where a city council of thugs basically tried to overthrow a female progressive, newly elected progressive mayor, and she right now appears to be gaining the upper hand, and we're helping her. So we will follow this as we move forward. Mimi, thank you for that, and we will keep everybody posted. We have 77 people with us. Do you want to throw one more thing before we move ahead?
I do. I want to say that Dana Lucas is here, and Dana is with Justice for Waldport. And Justice for Waldport is really getting the name out of, is getting facts out to the public about the recall that is going on. So if you want to drop Dana in for a minute.
Dana, let's show your face, and we will support and we will continue to follow this story and the recall. It would be wonderful to emerge with Waldport with a totally revamped city government, and maybe it will stand as allegory for the United States of America. We'd love to see that happen. We have 78 people with us. Steve Caruso, you have a hand? And then we're going to SUSIE Shannon and join us. And we're going to start talking about homelessness and nationwide and the impact of this horrendous bill that's in front of the Senate right now. But Steve Caruso, Mimi, if you want to show your attorney, that would be great also.
Dana, you could start your video. If anybody we co-host after the fact can start their video, you should be able to do it.
Okay.
Let me know.
Apologize.
And also, we want to welcome Ann Wilcox, a former leader of the National Lawyers Guild here. She wants to chime in.
Oh my God. Okay,
We'd be
great.
thankful if you did. Appreciate it. Thanks.
So anyway, Waldport, Oregon, we now have 80 people with us. Waldport, Oregon, we wanted to stand as allegory for the struggle to restore democracy. I mean, you know, a couple of months ago, it looked pretty bleak. The city manager and his MAGA minions were apparently in total control of this tiny town. And suddenly the mayor is back in charge, and they've got Mimi Gurman and all of us to deal with. So, we are nonpartisan. By the way, this is totally nonpartisan. None of the people on the council and the mayor herself is not a member of a major party. So we're just having a party. So, okay.
Sluggo, can Dana just tell us what's happening with the recall?
Now, very quickly, please, very quickly. Go ahead,
Hi.
Dana. Tell us what you're doing a recall in to get rid of the council. Is that it?
Hi, yeah, can you all hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay,
Very
yeah,
quickly.
sorry, I don't have my camera.
It's
It's
okay.
all good, all good.
Okay, yeah, we are in the midst of organizing to have a recall of all 6 city council members. 3 of them will not have been in office for 6 months until July 7th, so we have to wait until then before we file our petitions.
It's right around the corner. It's just a month.
Yes, something else that's come up, and I don't know if Mimi's aware of this, is that there is talk about people recalling the mayor.
Well, we would expect no less. So it's going to be
Right.
a very interesting campaign. How many people live in Waldport, Oregon?
There's approximately 2,500, probably less.
So this is Mayberry by the sea here.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And you are on the Pacific Ocean. Is that right?
The city of Waldport is on the Pacific Ocean. It's in the central coast of Oregon, Lincoln
Fantastic.
County.
Well, it couldn't be more picturesque. This is an amazing situation. We have a similar situation, well, parallel situation we're going to talk about in the second hour with the attempt of of Daniel Blackman, who's been with us before, to become a member of the Utilities Commission in Georgia. And the stakes in Georgia are about $40 billion worth of a nuclear plant that they just brought in line. And nobody's given Daniel Blackman a chance, but here he is still fighting. And we're going to talk about that in the second hour. But this story in Waldport, Oregon is phenomenal. It's really cuts to the heart of our democracy in this country. And we really want to emerge here, Dana and Mimi, with an outcome that underscores democracy. So next week, we will have the nonpartisan mayor who was elected, thrown out, death threats, arrested, released, and is now, now back with us. So let's follow this closely as we go ahead. Thank you, Mimi. Thank you, Dana. And stay with us for the call, if you would. Okay?
Thank you. Yes,
All
thank
right.
you very much.
We're with you 100%. This is going to make a great movie at some point. So it reminds me of Local Hero, that in that tiny town in Scotland with the theme song by Mark Knopfler. You'll have to listen to Local Hero and you should see the movie. Actually, it's very interesting, Local Hero. Okay, everybody, fantastic. We also now have a national hero with us, SUSIE SHANNON. SUSIE is one of the great crusaders. Lives in LA on the homeless issue. And of course, we now have this mega budget bill that has everybody in absolute terror. SUSIE, can you talk to us a bit about the impact of on homelessness of this bill? And then Mike Hersh is going to dive us in to the bill as a whole. This is the number one thing in the country, in the world today, is this insane bill that has passed by one vote, the House of Representatives, and now being kicked around in the U.S. Senate. SUSIE, do you want to hit us on the homeless side, and then we'll move into a deeper discussion?
Sure. And thank you so much for having me on the Zoom. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming on. I'm SUSIE SHANNON. I'm the chair of the Poverty Council for the Democratic National Committee. I've worked with homeless and low-income communities since 2005. This budget is probably the worst we have ever seen. It is our worst nightmare, close to our worst nightmare. They could have zeroed out Section 8, which would be our worst nightmare. It's $26 billion in cuts to Section 8. The federal government is proposing moving all of the Section 8 eligibility.
Well, SUSIE, very quickly, tell us what is Section 8.
Oh, okay. So Section 8 housing is housing for people who are low income and or have disabilities. And it could be senior housing, it could be veteran housing, but it's also just for people who are low income, who can't afford the market rate apartments that are in, most of these cities and in rural communities. And so what it does is it allows the tenant, first of all, if you can get a voucher, which those wait lists can be over 5 years long, or if you can get a set aside voucher, which would be like if you're unhoused or if you're a veteran, which would be VASH vouchers. What it does is allows the tenant to pay 30% of their income toward rent. And that's no matter what your income is. So if you're on general relief in the county of Los Angeles and you make $221, your rent would be about $70 a month. And then the federal government pays for the rest of that rent. Normally it's for people who are on public assistance, so they could be getting disability benefits, veterans benefits, on Social Security, here, on SSI, those kinds of benefits. A lot of people will qualify for Section 8, but it can also just be for people who don't qualify for those programs, but just cannot afford the market rate rent. And so these proposed cuts, which also would shift the actual administration of Section 8 from the federal governments to the states, means that red states, and I would include also non-red states that have bad governors or bad legislators, it shifts that eligibility to those states. So to give you an example of what's going on here in California, our Governor Newsom, is proposing right now Medicaid asset tests, so that anyone who brings in like more than $2,000 in Social Security, who might be living in a skilled nursing facility on Medicaid, will no longer be on Medicaid. Okay, so I'm just using that as an example to show you that even in blue states, poor people are going to get screwed. And I'm saying this as somebody who is formerly homeless and, whose family was homeless and has been working with homeless and low-income communities since 2005, that this is going to be one of the biggest disasters that we have seen. Skilled nursing facilities, boarding care facilities, all rely on Medicaid. Okay, and that takes a portion of our housing, right? That is kind of, people are housed in skilled nursing facilities, boarding care. And then in addition to that, taking away Section 8, I think one of the proposals was for people who are able-bodied and not on disability would have a 2-year limit on Section 8. So imagine this. You are someone who is disabled. Maybe you have diabetes, maybe you have a problem and you can't walk. It could take you 4 years just to get on disability, sometimes even longer in any state. In the meantime, while you're waiting for that disability diagnosis from the state to come in, you may reach your 2-year limit on Section 8 and become homeless, basically. So now you have an underlying. I should also disclose that I'm a health commissioner for the city of Los Angeles. So for me, someone with underlying medical conditions being put out onto the street can be a death sentence. And I don't say that, flippantly. We have 6 people dying on the streets of Los Angeles every single day. We are the homeless capital of the United States. And this is going to just put more people in that position everywhere.
Unbelievable. It's really just unbelievable. And our great liberal governor, Gavin Newsom, who's destroying the solar industry and making everybody in the state pay $11 billion to keep operating the Diablo Canyon nuclear plants. He is now playing the role of Donald Trump in California. Is that right?
Yes, so he has made a shift to the right. He has come down for this asset test on Medicaid. There are many of us who work so hard to get rid of that asset test. it basically inundates people with paperwork in order to stay on Medi-Cal. And if you are somebody who has dementia and you're living in a skilled nursing facility, right, or your, family is taking care of you and is already inundated with everything that they have to do to care for you, and then on top of it, your loved one may make like $5 over $2,000 coming in from Social Security, which is not enough to get an apartment. Our average apartment here in Los Angeles is $3,742 for a 2-bedroom apartment. $2,000 is nothing. And so he has made a huge shift to the right. First of all, he didn't support rent control, and our rents are right. So we have 50% of the people here are rent burdened, which means they're paying over 30% of their income in rent. And 30% pay over 50% of their income in rent. So California is the most rent burdened state in the entire United States. And our governor did not support rent control. And on top of it, and basically allowing corporate landlords to keep charging whatever they want, which means that more people really need Section 8 at a time when now the federal government is cutting it. So, when the federal government cuts these programs, you rely on whatever backfill you can get from the state in order to keep people housed, in order to keep them in these skilled nursing facilities. But our governor now is piggybacking on what Trump is doing and basically saying, not only are we not going to backfill this, but what we're doing here is just going to go along with Trump. And also, so you have to understand that when people are hit with these things, or when they're hit with cuts to Section 8, and then they're hit with Medicaid, it's the same family getting hit twice, right? And then they go after food stamps, so that's the third time. So it's the same family losing all of these benefits in housing, food, cash assistance, all the things that you need just to live, right? Just to live. And they're all
Susie,
getting cut.
Susie, we got a couple questions, and can you answer some questions for us?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you.
Happy to.
Ruth
Dr. Ruth,
Smells, Dr. Ruth, we got 93
Hi.
people with us.
Susie,
Ruth, go
thank you
ahead.
so much for your tireless work for years. I am a physician who works in the inner city, and I can tell you right now, as of 5 years ago, the wait list, I know you know this, but in case other people didn't, the wait list was impossible already for the unhoused. So
That's
this
right.
is just, an unbelievable, whack at what was already outrageous. The other thing, I'm going to go there. Karen Bass talked about, her game. She was going to, cure homelessness. And I wasn't for the other guy. But as far as I know, and you can disabuse me of this, it's as bad or worse. She certainly, as far as I know, did not alleviate the problem. And then there's the whole thing about where did the money go, which is another outrage. But finally, I want to say for other people, I'm from the South. I have some right-wing friends. They love to homeless bash cities that have homeless. And this is just going to make it worse. And isn't it ironic that it's right-wing people who homeless bash, and this is what Trump is doing? So thank you.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Trump is going to make the homeless situation worse. And that situation is going to become worse in mainly cities that are run by Democrats. So then they will use that against the Democrats to say that Democrats haven't been able to help the homelessness and housing crisis. And yes, things have not changed much in the city of LA. There's a bureaucracy that won't move, that has not moved with this mayor, has not moved with the previous mayor or the mayor before that, to be honest. And it's I don't know if a mayor can change this any more than I know if the chief of police can change the culture of the police department. The police department has been, killing people, killing innocent people for decades, regardless of who the police chief is. And I'm starting to feel like on homelessness, we're never going to have a mayor that can, move a bureaucracy to help poor people. It's a checkmate on people who are poor.
Well,
Well,
we also
Susie,
just lost, several thousand housing units thanks to Edison, torching Altadena and Pacific Palisades.
That's
Um,
right.
it's a nightmare. Karla Sand, go ahead, please, and then Vina.
Yes, this is KARLA SAND in Minnesota. We have some pretty liberal Medicaid rules here. But did I hear you say that someone who's in the nursing home is only there because they need to be, or otherwise they'd be in assisted living or something, that if they get over $2,000, their Medicaid is dropped? Who
That would be,
pays? Or do they walk
yeah.
them to the door and say, you're homeless?
Yeah, so
That
that
sounds
would
serious.
So that would be in California, the asset test in California. And that's assets. It's not even if you get it in Social Security, it's if you have it from anything, from owning a car, owning a home, owning anything that's an asset can be counted against you to get on Medicaid. And each state will have its own rules. So it could be even lower in other states. In California, the proposed asset limit is $2,000 from our Democratic governor, Gavin Newsom, who will one day run for president. So just remember this.
Yeah,
I
really.
understand all that. I worked in human resources.
Yeah.
But what I'm wondering is, do they just walk them to the door and say goodbye, you're homeless?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's even worse, to tell you the truth, is not only will they do that, but they also will likely not have enough patients for these skilled nursing facilities that can afford to pay the amount that they charge, which could be like over $5,000 or $6,000 a month. So in that case, then the whole skilled nursing facility will shut down.
Oh my
So it's a
God.
domino effect. Not only will the individual not be able to be there, and families will have to scramble to find a place that they can afford without that extra Medi-Cal, because Medi-Cal pays for part of a skilled nursing facility, and usually there's like a copay that, will take, pretty much all of your Social Security. I have to deal with this a lot with a lot of my clients and even some family members. And so if you have this $2,000 asset limit,
Susie,
you're
Susie,
screwed.
we're gonna try to get through this part and then talk about what we can all do to
Okay.
stop
Okay,
Trump's brutal budget bill. So
Okay.
let's not just recite everything that's going
okay.
badly. Let's
Okay.
also focus on things we can do to get,
Okay.
Vina
inspired and
Colley,
empowered.
Vina Colley, Dr. Nancy, Lynn, and then we're going to wrap this up and go into the broader bill. Susie, it's always great to have you. You're so powerful. Vina Colley, go ahead, then Dr. Nancy.
Yes, I just want to say that in my hometown right now, it's a big business to put addicts here and to put them in homes. And when they take away the Medicaid, we're also going to have all of these addicts who are getting treated to make their lives better will be on the streets too. And
Yep.
then the homes around here have doubled in price because they're getting money from Medicaid and they're building all kind of new places to put these addicts in. So when they take the Medicaid, they're out on the streets.
Yeah,
There's
they're
no
on the
help for them
street.
either.
That's right.
Unbelievable. Vina, that was you. Thank you very much, Vina. Dr. Nancy, you're in the biz here, so
Yeah, thank you, Susie, for what you're doing. Please clarify for me. I thought a couple months ago there was a national survey that concluded that our Mayor Bass, she had reduced homelessness to a greater percent than any other mayor in the country, and that California homelessness had gone up less than any other state in the country.
Well, okay, so number one, we still have more people who are homeless in Los Angeles than anywhere in the country. Number two, we have more people who are homeless in our state at 187,000 people than anywhere in the country. Number three, that is true. So what Inside Safe, which is Karen Bass's program, which is just kind of built on what Eric Garcetti did, but but did a better job of it. We did come down like a couple of percentage points in terms of what we showed from the homeless count, but then there was information that came out from LASA that they had kind of cooked the books a little bit on Inside Safe. So we don't know what the true numbers are. Regardless, though, I think my point was that we're going to have mayors come and go, and we're still going to have this kind of very large homeless population until we focus on permanent supportive housing. Right now we have temporary solutions. So even if more people are coming off of the streets, which I totally agree with because I don't want to leave people on the streets to die, those are you're going into temporary programs. So it's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, or think of a revolving door. They're going in and they're staying for a couple months and they're back out on the street. And so what happened with Inside Safe was that they were not tracking how many people went into permanent housing or how many people stayed in the program. And so we know that there were people who came in off the streets for a couple of months and then went back out into the streets. And so what you're seeing is just this revolving door back out into homelessness.
And
so
Susie, if the federal government pulls out the rug, is it going to get better
Oh
or
yeah,
worse?
it's awful because we relied a lot for Inside Safe.
So
and
we
for
want to
some of-
have enough time to talk about what we can do to stop
but
this
but let me just
horrible
finish
budget bill.
this. Let me just finish this thought, okay? Because we relied on a lot of COVID dollars to help with these programs for people who are unhoused that have now dried up. And the state is also drying up that money going into local government. So we can see that these temporary solutions were probably not a great way to go because they're not going to continue to get funded.
Unbelievable. Lynn Feinerman, and then we're
Yeah.
going to go into the bigger pieces of the bill. Susie, it's always really great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Lynn Feinerman, go ahead.
Yeah, as if this Medicaid matter and the matter of being able to give services isn't enough. I just want to counsel people as to what else is in this bill. If the Senate passes this one big ugly bill, I apologize, and Trump signs it, he can delay or cancel elections legally. He can ignore Supreme Court rulings for a year or more. He can fire government workers for political disloyalty. Judges will not be able to enforce their own orders. Protests can be tracked and criminalized. And forget about any LGBTQ rights, education, healthcare, totally gone. So this is not just about a budget. This is a sneaky unitary executive.
Fascism.
Yeah. So we need to keep that firmly in mind because it's not just about Medicaid and, everybody's focusing on that.
Well, let's jump into that. Let's jump into the rest of it. Susie, do you want to give us a summary, and then we got 96 people with us, and we're gonna jump in to the bigger bill as Lynn and Mike have raised.
Okay, I'm sorry, a summary for what?
Just is there anything else you want to add on the homeless aspect?
Yeah.
Very
I mean,
quickly.
I guess the thing is, obviously, no Democrat should be supporting whether they're a governor in a state where they'll have, some leeway on Section 8, or whether they're, a member of Congress. They should all be supporting our low-income communities, and they should be doing everything they can to fight against them. I mean, the cuts are going to come and the money's not going to be there, but we need backfill, and we need to make sure our states are doing everything they can to help folks. And obviously we need to take back Congress. I mean, we all know that, but, start working on it now and get a strategy and
Right.
Be a precinct captain and know those 100 voters in your area that you can talk to, and you know their dog's name, and you know you know how to speak to them, and you know how to educate them on these issues, because it's really, these elections are now going to happen like 100 voters at a time, right?
Okay.
What
Susie
I'm
Shannon,
saying though, is that
oh, wait,
this
wait,
is
Lynn, Susie
not
Shannon,
really just a budget.
Susie, you'll come back and keep
Yeah.
us filled in on
And
that.
and you're
Lynn,
right, it's not only the budget. It's absolutely not just the budget.
and it's not any members of any party in particular. We have seen Republicans who stood up at this. So there are a number of Republican senators who making noise about this. But
Yeah, but they're not making noise about anything except Medicaid, at least not publicly.
Yeah,
Okay,
and we need, and I'm
this
going to
is
add, if I can add to that too, as progressives, when you are going out and protesting like I am, obviously you want to talk about Medicaid cuts, but we're not seeing like anything about housing or Section 8 or any of that. And believe me, people are watching. So if you could, maybe you want to talk about Medicaid on one of your signs one time, but if we could get more stuff out there about housing, I mean, this is going to be devastating. It's the #1 issue in California. We just had our state convention for the Democratic Party, and only one person that spoke at that convention talked about housing and homelessness, and it is our #1 issue for constituents.
Wow.
wow. Okay.
very important. But, if Trump can cancel elections, none of this will matter.
Well, let's move into this now.
Careful.
We want to talk about the
Okay.
other aspects of this bill. And thank you for that, Susie. Come back anytime. And Lynn, thank you for raising these issues. Let's go to Steve, Mickey Leader, Heidi, and move ahead. Go ahead, Steve Steve
Yes,
Russo.
we do have Paul Mobley with us, who is expected to speak around 7 o'clock about Piketon and the irradiation of the community down there from the gaseous diffusion plant. Also, if this will ameliorate Lynn at all, that's somebody now has a court case that is going to start counting ballots in New York State. So it's been a consternation to people to understand how this guy got into office. And this is what Kamala Harris should have done. And now finally somebody's getting to do it. So keep your fingers crossed and your hands clasped for prayer, and we'll see how it goes.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for that. Okay, we'll go to Mickey Leader, and Mike Hersh, you're going to jump in and give us kind of an overview of this. Mickey Leader, go ahead, and then Mike Hersh.
Hi, good evening. I wanted to say in very southern tip, Rockland County, New York, very close to Manhattan, the lack of any housing, whether or not you can pay or whether you are still waiting forever to get on Section 8, is critical. Nobody can find any affordable housing. And unfortunately, affordable is so badly described. In our neighboring county in New Jersey, affordable housing permits said you had to have 20% of the apartments or houses designated to Section 8. That's not happening here. People, the individual towns are blocking permits to build from various reasons. But the bottom line is people who are ill can't, even if you're a senior citizen, can't get an apartment. And it started way before COVID. So we can't say COVID caused it. As much as I just met the lieutenant governor.
And Mickey, if we don't stop this bill in the Senate, it's going to get a million times worse. So as bad as everything is now, we're going to call this the good old days if we don't stop this bill.
Can you do me a favor? Can you please send out emails to all of us on this call with the bill and the rationale? Because by the time
we're sharing that. Yeah, we're sharing that in the chat now.
Yes, but I'm one of those people who can't copy the chat.
Well, you just need to click on You just need
Okay,
to
just
click
give
on
us
the links.
Mickey,
Yeah,
send us your email, please, and we'll get you what we can get you.
whatever
Okay?
you can. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you, Mickey. We appreciate it. Heidi, and then we're going to go to Mike to give us an overview of this bill. Heidi Verteiler, and then we'll go
Yes.
to Mike Hirsch.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. I'm wanting to know who that one person was during the California State Democratic Convention, because I think if it wasn't our leader, Alan Minsky, that am I getting his name right?
Yeah.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
he wasn't. I meant speaking on the stage. Alan wasn't on asked to speak on the stage.
Okay, well, I was thinking if it wasn't him, then who is it, and how can we get him involved, him or her involved in what we're doing here, so that they can get the support that we can give them, so
Great
that we can.
question.
Yeah, it was Congress member Jimmy Gomez who started the Renters Caucus in Congress. So he was the only one to talk about housing and homelessness.
Well, I
Unbelievable.
think we should get a hold of him and bring him in.
Yes. Well, let's bring in Mike Hirsch and
Yep.
give
Thank
us an
you.
overview, Mike, of this bill in terms of, and as Lynn has raised, all these political aspects that people aren't talking about.
Yeah, Lynn, I would love to get some substantiation. I don't doubt a word that you shared with us, but we have some skeptical people, so we need to have some links to support that. So if you could put that in the chat, we can get that out there, because I've just found out there are a lot of non-budgetary things squirreled away in this huge, brutal budget. And you're right, it's not just about the budget, but the things that are about the budget are bad enough. So we don't even need to go beyond the fact that they're going to be slashing programs that literally keep people alive, slashing them. And what they're trying to do is offset gigantic tax giveaways for these billionaires and big corporations. So even the way it is now, it's going to blow up the deficit even more. And whenever the deficit goes up, a large number of people, the neoliberals and people to their right, start saying we need austerity. You're never going to be able to use austerity to get yourself out of any problems. Franklin Roosevelt actually ran on a balanced budget platform, and he tried to balance the budget during the Depression. The Depression got worse, and then smarter people prevailed on him, and we needed to have a strong government leadership and action. But
Well,
right now,
primarily who leaned on Franklin Roosevelt was his wife, Eleanor. And Eleanor, I'm not sure we're going to get the same kind of activity from Melania Trump.
what does she say? I don't care. Why do you, or something like that? Yeah. So she's no Eleanor Roosevelt. I did not know Eleanor Roosevelt. She was not a friend of mine, but Melania Trump is no Eleanor Roosevelt. And also Frances Perkins was instrumental in.
That's correct. So the political stuff that Lynn has raised on this budget bill, I haven't heard out either, and we need to get to the bottom of that. Mike, do you want to cover some of the financial aspects?
Absolutely, and I have a blog that I wrote that itemized a lot of this, but it'd be impossible to get it all into one blog. But basically, Trump has a battle axe that he has pointed at us, and he's going to really chop up a lot of what makes the United States what it is today. It's going to, one of the things that Republicans are pushing back on is that it's going to blow up the deficit, and a lot of Republicans are concerned about that. It's supposedly going to cut. It would increase the federal debt limit by $4 trillion. Meanwhile, it's supposedly balancing the budget. So that just goes to show you how ridiculously fraudulent this whole enterprise is. I'm going to drop in 20 reasons why members of the Senate, and these are very conservative people by and large, the Democrats and Republicans and independents alike are relatively conservative people with a few exceptions. But there are there are 19 numbered, and there's the one is the $4 trillion debt limit increase. Number 13, the reduction in affordable housing programs. And Mickey made a very good point. What's affordable for who? A lot of the housing is not affordable. It's labeled that, but it isn't for an average person. And all of these are substantiated by links that you can go and find more information about. But what we really need you to do is call both of your senators. I don't care if they're Democrats, Republicans, Independents. You have to raise your voice and make sure that both of your senators know that you oppose this. And one of the things that, and people will complain, oh, my senator's not going to listen to me, yada, yada, yada. This is my point. If they get, a lot of the senators don't want to vote for this, Republicans included. Democrats, by and large, will all vote no. Because this is a reconciliation bill, it is not subject to filibuster. And even if it were, the Republicans would probably just change the rule anyway. And that's even if Chuck Schumer had the guts to call for a filibuster, which he failed to do in the past. But if we can get maybe 4 Republicans to vote no, and they can say, I'd love to do what you want, President Trump, but my constituents are ringing the phone off the hook saying, don't do it. And what are they going to do? They have to decide if they want to face the music by making an enemy of Trump or get voted out. And a lot of them deserve to be voted out anyway. But
Well,
yeah,
one of the things that this budget bill does, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, is utterly destroy the environmental regulations
that's right.
on the federal level. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. There'll be no enforcement. And this is the thing that Trump has realized. And in the past, there is both legislation and Supreme Court decisions that say if Congress allocates money to, say, protect the environment, then the executive doesn't have the option to do that. The executive branch is obligated to do that. The Supreme Court has backtracked on that, but that legislation is still in the books. However, Trump is not going to listen. All he has to do is say, we're firing all the people who are supposed to enforce regulation. We're going to cut all the money that's used to test to see if the water or air or land is being polluted. So they're just going to dismantle the whole regulatory apparatus that we painstakingly built in response to rivers catching on fire and children dying of asthma and lead paint poisoning and all that other stuff. It's horrendous. They're turning back the clock on modernity. There's no other explanation for it. And yes, that's exactly right. They're going to dismantle FEMA. They're going to dismantle NOAA, which predicts hurricanes. So even in Republican areas, they won't get a warning that a hurricane is coming. They won't get help to evacuate. They won't get help to rebuild after they've been struck. They won't get emergency care to help people who've been injured by the hurricanes and tornadoes. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's absolutely ridiculous. And Sluggo, you're absolutely right. Everything that we hold dear is on the chopping block. One of the things that concerns me a lot is that they're going after Medicare and Medicaid, because those are 2 programs that do a lot for a lot of people, and it costs a lot of money to provide healthcare to tens of millions of people. And taking away their healthcare is actually going to cost the country more in the long run. But that's where the money is. And if they're trying to come up with these offsets, they're going after Medicare and Medicaid. And Susie mentioned some of this, that when they strip away Medicaid protections, a lot of these nursing homes and assisted living facilities depend on Medicaid. They have very close margins, and they will close. The same as hospitals, especially in the rural areas. and in urban areas that are already underserved. They're holding on, by their fingertips. And without Medicaid funding, up to 50% of the hospitals in some states like Arkansas are going to close. And that's it. Once a hospital closes, it's very, very difficult to reopen it. It requires a whole lot of money. People won't be maintaining the building. And where are these patients going to go? It's just beyond horrendous. And again, we need everybody on this Zoom to call their senators and tell everybody you know. And Marta Steele asked, what if your senator is Fetterman? Well, Fetterman's somebody who recently had a stroke. He's needed health care. He's on a government-run plan himself. And hopefully, despite his veering off into MAGA land, we can get him to do what he should do and stand up against this.
Well, let's move. If anyone, I don't see anyone raising a hand on this. It's very important, Lynn. We need to explore the issues you've raised here in terms of the dictatorial powers that appear to have been written into this alongside the draconian economic measures. So this is something we have to look into. We're joined by Ray McClendon in Georgia, and I don't see Dan Blackman with us, but we do have an election we want to discuss there. And I do want to raise, and we have to go into this deeper in our next couple of calls. There's this sense among people in this country that all this is going to backfire on Trump and the 2026 election. Control of Congress will be reversed. People are not looking at what's happened to our elections. And if you look at the elections of 2000 in Florida, 2004 in Ohio, 2017, 16 in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and then most recently in 24, there are very serious questions about whether we're actually going to have, first of all, are we going to have elections at all? And if we do have them, will they be fair, and will progressives prevail? There's assumption that this bill is so bad that everybody's going to be turned off. I get a sense from this administration that they're just cruising along on the assumption that they're not going to be called to account at all in 26. And we're seeing a contest like this, a canary in the coal mine here in Georgia with this public utilities election. Ray McClendon, do you want to tell us a bit about what's going on? I thought we were going to have Dan Blackman with us, but maybe he couldn't make it. I don't know. But Ray McClendon, Citizens United, you know as much as anybody about elections in Georgia. Can you give us the inside scoop?
Yeah, don't call us Citizens United now. That's a bad word.
Oh, I'm
Communities
sorry.
United.
Communities United.
Those are the other guys.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You are definitely not that Supreme Court justice who shall not be named. But go ahead.
No, thanks, Luggo, and hopefully Daniel will be able to join us at some point. I know that Mike got the invitation out. As you can understand, he's very busy right now when he got blindsided by a.
Well, tell us what happened here. We're talking about Daniel Blackman.
Yeah. Okay. So there's we've had challenges. Let me give the full context as quickly as I can here.
And Ray is talking to us from Atlanta, and in the heart of in the belly of the beast.
So what?
Daniel is here.
Oh, he's here. So then instead of me trying to explain it, what I'll just do is say that as an intro to Daniel Blackman, who is we've had on this show before. He has the experience, the expertise on utility and energy matters. He's been an advocate across the state, and he is just what we need in this vital role. We've got some of the highest utility rates in the country in Georgia, We need somebody looking out for our interests as opposed to the interests of Georgia Power. And
Daniel should be able to start his video if he wants.
and
Daniel, you need to unmute.
and so we're just excited that he has been able to fight and claw his way to remain in this vital race in this primary. That's on June 17th. Early voting has already started, and so instead of me talking about it, let's introduce a friend of ours and a friend of the show, Daniel Blackman.
Yeah, and you're talking from a state where a twin nuclear power plant just went online at the tragically cost of almost $40 billion that the ratepayers of Georgia are now stuck with. And Daniel, you ran once for the Public Utilities Commission, and now you're running again. So tell us what's going on.
Well, let me first say thank you to Ray. Ray, I thank you guys. I'm in between campaign stops between Atlanta and Clayton County, Georgia, to meet with some of our congressional members. I want to first say thank you and then jump right into the state of the campaign, where we are, what the current state of the appeal is, and why I think we're even in this position. And so I'll start from the top, and again, thank you guys so much for the opportunity to speak to you. This campaign was started for two reasons. On February the 25th, the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, was basically put this race back on the schedule. So as you guys may or may not know, I ran and was the last Democrat to run for the Public Service Commission on a completed election. When the lawsuit happened to move the Public Service Commission to districts, this race was put on hold, which extended the appointed public service commissioners' seats by 2 years. As a matter of fact, when it's all said and done, 4 of the 5 commissioners will ultimately serve out 8-year terms instead of 6-year terms, which is a tremendous blow to many of us and what we worked for, including the expansion of nuclear plant Vogtle, the data centers that are coming to Georgia, and the massive rate increases, which is no surprise that our governor interjected himself in this race to call for a rate freeze for the next 3 years, which includes 3 election cycles where the Public Service Commission will be on the ballot each of those 3 years. Now, when I qualified for this race, we were well within the qualification status of me moving back into Atlanta. The whole challenge with me currently is a residency challenge. And for those that don't know who I am or may not remember me, I was the former Democratic nominee for the Public Service Commission in 2020. We made the runoff and garnered over 2.3 million votes in 2020. We made that runoff. We fell short by 26,000 votes. 3 months after that, I was appointed by President Biden to run the Environmental Protection Agency as a regional administrator. And I left the agency in 2024 as the senior advisor for STEM. My role was to attach a STEM tag to each of the president's executive orders while helping to build the infrastructure that ultimately rebuilt the federal workforce. So fast forward to where we are today. I qualified on April the 3rd. We didn't find out until May the 18th that there had been a challenge, which means the Secretary of State's office had sat on a challenge for over 5 weeks. We literally got notice that there was a challenge on the 17th. We weren't disqualified, which happened extremely fast, until the day of the election. Literally, early voting started on the 27th. The disqualification notice went out that day. The first thing that I want to address about that is, number one, we have been working at this in the Public Service Commission and organizing the state for a very long time, to the point that we actually have run data and gotten information from pollsters out of Harvard University that speaks to our win number, and the data actually shows a direct path to victory in my race. We knew that coming into a contested primary, we had an opportunity to win a contested primary without a runoff. But we didn't want to take any of those candidates lightly. And what we did was we built a strategy that continued to organize in areas where I overperformed. That included coastal Georgia, rural Georgia, areas like Houston County, which have been Republican strongholds, that we were able to get a tremendous impact in because of Plant Shearer outside of Macon and the coal ash issues. We were able to go back into areas where we knew from an environmental standpoint and from a Public Service Commission standpoint, we would overperform, but also galvanize the base, because of what was mentioned earlier about nuclear plant Vogel, the utility rates. Six of the last 7 hearings have gone up. I have spent the entirety of my career on utility regulation, testifying before the Nuclear Regulatory Commission against the expansion, and doing work that is in the best interest of frontline communities and impacted communities all over the state of Georgia and, quite frankly, in the Southeast. And I did that work and extended throughout my time at the Environmental Protection Agency by deploying money under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. So in that process, it brings us back to where we are today. We believe the Secretary of State's office intentionally held off because if there was a true issue from the onset and we had to have our day in court, we could have easily gone to court the beginning of May so that we could have resolved the issue before my name was officially on the ballot. Our concern is that they held on to it and waited because there was a full expectation that this race would be targeted. And what's interesting is that the gentleman that challenged my residency is not a candidate. He is a diehard Democrat. So we basically looked and said, why is a gentleman that votes in every Democrat election coming to challenge our residency? It's something we were prepared for, but expected to come from the other side. Well, what we found out was that he was connected to one of the candidates in the race, a woman named Keisha Waits, who has never run for anything environmental, who has never done anything with the Public Service Commission, and is on record not 1, not 2, but 3 times for saying she does not have an energy background, she does not understand the Public Service Commission, and her answer is that she believes as a former legislator that she could bring energy to the Public Service Commission that would inform more more ratepayers. My concern is this woman has never looked at a hearing, has never gone to an IRP case, has never gone to a community that's been affected by coal ash. Yet and still, a woman that filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago is all of a sudden paying a $5,000 qualifying fee to run for the Public Service Commission. And that is a tremendous burden. And we absolutely believe that we're targeted in this race. 2 weeks after the candidacy, the residency challenge was filed, Governor Brian Kemp had actually just returned from a trip meeting with President Trump. We got a call from the New York Times, and the New York Times said to us verbatim, we believe that this is the only race in the country that can give us basically a perspective on the midterm elections, because John Ossoff at the time, if you all are following Georgia politics, was apparently going to be going up against either Governor Kemp or Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, within a 48-hour period of Brian Kemp meeting with Donald Trump, we found out that Brian Kemp was going to withdraw his name, and within 24 hours, Marjorie Taylor Greene withdrew her name, and subsequently after, Brian Kemp called a hearing with the Public Service Commission saying that he worked out a deal with the Georgia Power Company to freeze utility rates across the board, which we know is a farce, and we know that there are hidden and fixed costs. That does not mean rates can't increase. It was a base rate announcement that the average ratepayer is not going to understand. We understand fixed costs. We understand that these expansions of data centers, of the lack of regulatory prowess that the presidential administration is going to pass, and also that the Trump administration has subsequently, through the executive order in February, frozen the low-income heating and energy assistance program. So we know this is an adversarial time in states like Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and all over our country, where the work that all of us have put in for the past several decades is under attack. Where we are is we submitted a brief to the Secretary of State to remain on the ballot. The Secretary of State assured us that we would get a time frame, that we were under the assumption we would get an announcement within 2 days of submitting a brief. Within 2 hours, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reached out to us. We had not yet even gotten the letter in the mail, by email from the Secretary of State's office, but every media outlet in Georgia knew. And when we knew it was potentially coming, but what we did not realize was that was going to come without time for the Secretary of State to review the briefing that my attorney gave, which was basically sworn affidavit, our testimony, and 3 hours of testimony from other witnesses that we had that we felt was in the best interest of this case, and that gave me the best shot at proving our legitimacy as a candidate for the Public Service Commission.
Okay, Daniel, let me jump in here real quick. We want to make sure everybody understands that what you're running for is the commission in the state of Georgia that deals with rates.
Yes.
And the Georgia rate structure has just sustained the biggest addition probably in any state in many years of the 36 billion plus to pay for the nuclear plant at
That is
Waldport.
correct.
And this is why the stakes are so high in your race for the Public Service Commission. Now,
is
the
correct.
question is, are you on the ballot in the
I
Public
am.
Service? So you
I
are back
am.
on the ballot. You are officially a legitimate candidate now to be on the Public Service Commission.
Yes, but that is because we are in an appeals process that we feel comfortable about. But through the Fulton County Superior Court, they believe that there was substantial evidence to keep me on the ballot until a further hearing happened, and the date for that hearing is on June the 10th.
And when is the actual election over?
June the 17th.
So what date?
The primary election will be over on June the 17th. The general election will be on November the 4th.
So you have only a week between the end of the election and a court decision on the legitimacy of your candidacy. So they're doing everything they can to keep you off the Public Service Commission. Is that correct?
That is correct. And
I
just
think people have to understand the stakes here, because having you on the Public Service Commission puts the entire $40 billion package for the Vogtle nuclear plant up in the air. Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily up in the air, but it does call into question moving forward what costs can be continued to be passed on to ratepayers. And the gentleman I'm running against actually oversaw $24 billion in additional hearings from the Public Service Commission, which totals around $64 billion total.
So people of Georgia are about to go into ratepayer hell if you're not on that Public Service Commission. Is that correct?
We believe so, with the background I have and the experience that I've had with the commission over time. Absolutely.
How much difference can a single commissioner on the PSC make in terms of this rate issue?
A single commissioner can't make too much of a difference on what's already been baked into the cake, but a single commissioner can have a tremendous impact on bringing to the forefront the discrepancies to what has happened at the Public Service Commission and pushing back on the utility companies to ensure that if those metrics are not met, we can then work with the legislative body to ensure that some of those costs are reversed, including the data center costs that are going to be passed on to ratepayers.
So I would guess that in turn, and we have, by the way, the great Carl Grossman is on with us, and we're going to talk about some nuclear economics after this. But I would guess that in the whole United States, there is not a single electoral race, that has more actual dollars attached to it than this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's an absolute, unless there's another state with $100 billion in projects online for data centers and combined 2 nuclear reactors with a potential 5th and 6th reactor to be developed in the next 5 years. I think this is probably the most, important race, at least in the Southeast United States.
Okay. Myla Reason, you're well versed in these issues, and then Mike and Ruth.
I just have. Wait a minute. I was on
staff. Heidi, we'll get to you. We'll definitely get to you.
We'll get you, Heidi. You spoke already. We want to come back to you. Go ahead, Myla.
Yeah, Daniel, what can we do for you? How do we help you? Oh, and you okay.
For a second, I'm sorry about that. Look, there are 2 things we can do. Number one is to make sure that each of your networks are aware of what's going on in the state of Georgia around the Public Service Commission. Obviously, resources matter for us to be able to collectively run a strong field campaign and have every single legal element we need. I mean, we've got a great attorney. He's actually doing this pro bono because he believes in this race, and he actually has done a great job fighting back. But I'll tell you, we need access to more networks, more spaces like this. And I want to thank each of you that's on this call. the more people like this know about it, the more there's attention here. And we know we're doing the right thing because as of today, our data shows that our campaign is outpacing Republican turnout 60 I think we're up 60 or 80 and they're at 40. So we are twice as many Democrats are coming out for a race people apparently didn't know about than Republicans, which doesn't, bode well for them. So the
Well,
support.
we are nonpartisan technically, and we
Yeah.
can't raise money for candidates. We don't do that. But so what you need to do, please, is put as much literature in the chat and to send the people like Amila and other people
Yep.
on the line so that the information about your campaign can be known. But this is the most expensive power plant ever built in the United States, and that 36 billion that they're admitting to. You next door is the VC Summer plant in South Carolina that was dead on canceled at $9 billion, but you got in at 36 billion. And I will point out that Barack Obama is the one who gave the initial money to get Vogtle going. So it's cuts across party lines, no doubt about that. Maude, do you want to add? Then we'll go to Mike Hersh, Ruth Strauss, and Heidi.
Can I just say that people who are listening can go to danielforgeorgia.com, and for is spelled FOR. So it's
Okay.
danielforgeorgia.com if you're listening and you'd like to help Mr. Blackman.
So
Us.
remember, we're not raising money, but we are spreading the information about this campaign, which
Absolutely.
is dollar for dollar. This is the #1 campaign in the United States. There's no doubt about it. Mike Hersh, Ruth Strauss, and then Heidi.
I just want to say really quickly, Sluggo, what Daniel's talking about is they're turning Georgia into a laboratory for these nuclear-powered crypto farms and AI plants, where they're claiming that regular sources of energy are insufficient to power these behemoths. And they call them data centers. It's not. As Steve Caruso has put in the chat, these are a boondoggle. And that's why the price tag is so high. You know that there's a whole lot of politicians with their hands out. And that's why they're trying so hard to keep Daniel off the ballot. Because they know that if Daniel's in these meetings, he'll come out and talk to the media and tell the public, the reason you're getting screwed, the reason you can't pay your utility bills is that these people are ripping you off. And so, Daniel,
That's right.
thank you so much for what you're doing, my friend.
Yes.
This is the front line of people versus these faceless, nameless, nuclear-powered nightmares, where they're trying to undermine our currency. They're trying to take over people's jobs with this artificial intelligence, which is artificial but is not intelligent. And
Well, we do want to point out the Vogtle reactors are the only 2 reactors that were started and finished in the 21st century. One other American reactor has come online, started back in the Stone Age, but Vogtle is an utter catastrophe. There are no other nuclear reactors under construction in the United States.
Well, Sluggo, my point is, if they can get away with it in Georgia, they're going to try to do it in all the other states. I've
There's one
seen them
other
do
thing
this
about
before.
Georgia that Daniel is well aware. There is a very large photovoltaic factory in Georgia. Georgia actually produces a lot of photovoltaic cells right alongside the nuclear.
Hey, Sluggo,
Yeah,
let's get these other questions so we can be mindful of the time with Daniel.
Yes,
Thank
go
you.
ahead, Ruth, and then Heidi, and then Daniel will let you go. Go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah, Daniel, you remind me of a wonderful African-American patient that I got a heart transplant for years ago. And when I was complaining to her about something, she goes, "Oh, girl, the devil, he stays busy," which was one of my favorite quotes for all time. Anyway, 2 things. For everybody on this call, Harvey and Milo were responsible for my education about nuclear, and we went and testified in front of the Public Utilities Commission in our state twice about Diablo Canyon, and both times they voted against what 99% of the people who talked, like myself, did. So your position is extremely important. And my last thing is phone banking anything that we can or should do?
So I want to be respectful of the nonpartisan side. I put in the chat that Melissa Klink is my campaign manager. She can be reached at klinkcreativestrategies@gmail.com, which is in the chat. And if anyone wants to directly reach out to me, Melissa would be the best point of contact, and she is very responsive.
Thank you. And Carl Grossman, maybe you and I should do a piece about this. Heidi, you've been waiting patiently. Then we'll go to Ray, and Daniel will let you have a last word.
Hey, Daniel, it's Heidi Viertaler from the PCCC Inaugural Campaign Committee.
Wow. I know exactly. That is amazing. Very good to hear from you, Heidi. That was the genesis of me actually becoming Bernie Sanders' political director. So I am very, very happy to hear from you.
Great. Well, I want to know, would you welcome lawyers from the state of Maine to possibly get involved with your case at all? Would that help you? And what else could we do to help?
Yeah, well, again, guys, the outpouring of love and support is overwhelming, and I could not thank you enough. I think right now we're in a pretty decent position where we will have the support we need, and I think that, you know, until we decide after the appeal process what's next, I think we're in a pretty good position to to continue to fight. What I would ask each of you to do is drop Melissa a note during or after this call, and I'd like to maybe schedule a Zoom to give you guys an update. Ray, you can help us coordinate whatever we need to do, but I thank you so much. Guys, it means the world. My phone has been going nonstop. What helps me that you can do is, outside of those legal resources, any podcast, publication, progressive outlet that we can continue to share this story is what I need to get the word out and to ensure that people can get behind our candidacy.
Well, Daniel, you can never have too many lawyers, so certainly follow up with Heidi, please. I speak from knowledge because I'm married to one. Ray McClendon, do you want to jump in with this? And is Daniel?
No. Let's just let Daniel have the last word.
All right. Well, Daniel, we want you back next week if you can. Consider yourself scheduled in. You tell us what time. We want to follow up with you as we're following up with the mayor of Waldport, Oregon. So yes, go ahead. There's one other hand, Mickey Leader, if you can be brief, and then we'll let Daniel get a last word and he can go.
I will try to be very brief. If everybody saw what happened in Colorado yesterday, there's another sneaky thing we did not see. The Trump administration stopped funding security for religious institutions. That was in the news yesterday.
Okay.
And I know it doesn't have any direct discussion about what's going on today, but we might as well make sure that that goes on our parking lot, because nobody, churches, mosques, synagogues, schools are safe. And comments all day yesterday were, oh, people should not be out there marching for things in case whatever.
Well, thank you for that, Mickey. We appreciate it. Daniel, you please know that you have an open invitation to come back next week with Ray, and we'll set a time. And once you wrap up, I know you got people to see.
That's right. Well, look, I'll end by saying this. I want to personally thank you guys. We're going to continue to fight this. This is the first time in the history of the state of Georgia that the Public Service Commission has only been on the ballot, and the first seat Republicans flipped in the history of this state was the Public Service Commission. So I just want to say thank you guys for keeping us, really encouraged. Let's build, let's get stronger, and I'll keep you updated.
The thing about it is it's very
Mickey, mute. Are you saying, Daniel, I didn't understand this. This special election is only for the PSC?
The only race in the state of Georgia this year is the Public Service Commission. That has never happened in the state of Georgia, which means we could not only win this seat, we can win 2 seats in November.
So there are 2 seats up. And
yes.
Do you have another a good candidate running?
Yes, Dr. Alicia Johnson. She's running against Tim Echols. She is already the nominee, and she's gonna be there. Guys, I've got to go. They're flagging me into this meeting.
Go.
Thank
yes.
you. Okay.
Carl and I will follow up. We'll do a piece This is really important stuff. And Ray, if you can get the other candidate, that would be great.
All right. Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Wow, that was really a hit. And I will reiterate, there has never been in the state of Georgia a single race with more actual dollars riding directly on the outcome than this one. We're talking about $40 billion for these two reactors. Absolutely insane. Again, Ray, thank you. Daniel, thank you. And we'll proceed with this next week. Okay. Steve Caruso, did you say we had someone to talk about Piketon, Portsmouth before we move
Mobley,
on?
he's here. I'll pull him up. Give him a
Okay,
second here.
then we're going to
And
go to
Vine is
Carl
here too,
Grossman.
if she wants to chime in. So
Carl Grossman is going to be next. We want to talk about this new big push that Trump wants to do for nuclear power. But go ahead real quick, Vina, and talk about Portsmouth here, and then we'll move ahead.
I don't see Vina here.
Okay, we had her. And who is,
Yep.
who else is it, Steve?
My name's Paul
Paul
Mobley.
Mobley. Okay, Paul,
Yeah.
did you want to tell us a bit about what's happening at Portsmouth and
Sure.
Piketon?
Vina wanted to apologize. She had a meeting to attend. So I'm here to kind of represent what Vina has done there in Piketon and Portsmouth gaseous diffusion plant. And I also have another thing to share when it comes to the dose system that internationally is used, from everything from regulations and everything that revolves around the handling of nuclear materials, right? So Vina Kali has been in the activist sectors for 40 years. She's done so much amazing work, gathering information, working for workers that worked at the plant. And
Now we're talking about the Piketon and Portsmouth facility, the uranium facilities in
the
Southern
uranium
Ohio.
enrichment plant, in Piketon, Ohio. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. I actually write the current press releases for Portsmouth Piketon residents for environmental safety and security, which Vina Kali is the president of.
Okay.
Right. So, yes, we're talking about the same site that is part of the three sister sites in the Midwest here. So, she is a worker that was exposed when she was working as an electrician at the plant. Her and her supervisor went up on one of the floors in the Cascade buildings, and they were exposed to a dust that she breathed in. And they come to find out with her in vivo that she breathed in a high amount of fluorides, neptunium, and enriched uranium, and technetium 99. So she was exposed. She then kind of dug in and did a lot of work on gathering information for workers. She thought, more than 30 workers were being exposed. So she wanted to bring this issue to the limelight. And she's worked ever since for workers trying to get their compensation through the EEOI CPA. And really, she's got documents like you wouldn't believe.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. What do you need from me?
So what do you want from us to know exactly about what's happening at Portsmouth Piketon right now?
Well, right now there's uranium enrichment going on with centrifuges. But there's been so much work in the past that underlies what's happening today. We have cancer rates that absolutely skyrocketed around the five counties there in Southern Ohio. Joe Mangano did a study where they found a huge increase between the years of the operation of the gaseous diffusion plant. The workers were exposed. The cascades. The problem is they used recycled uranium. They put this uranium that was from nuclear power plants and various other sites like they're in South Carolina, they're in Hanford. They sent all this stuff there, and they try to use it. Well, the system wasn't designed to have these fission products and these transuranics in the system. Okay, so it for the first 10 to 15 years, the plant didn't even have magnesium filters on the exhaust stacks, right? So a lot of people got exposed. That material is still in the environment today. The bloodlines of people from workers and the surrounding communities, their genes were exposed to this long ago that affects them today.
And
And the science,
is there an additional push to fire up things at Portsmouth Piketon?
yeah, there's through Centrus is the centrifuge plant. They're starting. They have contracts with even South Vietnam for HALEU fuel, right? High assay, low enrichment fuel.
Okay.
So there's activity there going today, and what they're doing is they're demolishing these old buildings, these massive buildings that were the largest in the world at the time, and the buildings are contaminated with all these constituents and they're tearing them down, and they're storing these pieces in a on-site disposal cell that they've engineered, right? So we have all this activity in the air from this demolition process because all they're doing is spraying water in the air and trying to knock the radionuclides down out of the air.
Sounds like an
We all,
absolute
as
nightmare. I've been down
engineers,
there, and it's, Paul, can you keep us posted on efforts to deal with this situation?
yeah, I mean, we all know it all comes down to law, attorneys, politicians. This encompasses both sides of the aisle. It's not just one side or the other, right? Because this is provable through the science. Like I was going to talk about the dose system. The dose system we're utilizing internationally is flawed, severely flawed. And you can prove this through what's known as linear energy transfer, which is the distance that amount of energy is deposited until it's lost completely, right? Linear energy transfer. And then you have what's called RBE, right? It's relative biological effectiveness, right? And these are how the weighting factors are set. For alpha, it's 20, neutron 10, gamma beta is a 1, right? These are the ratios. And you can attack that system. This is what it's based on, right? So if the ratio of LET for alpha is between 100 and 150.
Okay.
KeV per the distance of a micron.
Okay.
Right? The gamma is a 0.2 to 3 kilo electron volts within a micron, with a ratio of between 500 to 50 to 1. Right?
So, Paul, we need to go into this in deeper detail at a separate session. Can I have you come back and we can delve in? So we'll do this in a future.
But this is important. This encompasses everybody's anti-nuclear activities. This is the information you need to get through that.
Absolutely. So I want to have you back with Joe Mangano, and we can and when we have Vina, and we'll get through this at a deeper level. When we're really set to do it. But
Harvey, can I just throw in a comment?
Yes, please go ahead, Myla.
Well, for one thing, Dr. John Goffman emphasized that ionizing radiation can be lethal down to the lowest dose. And the idea that there's some kind of a safe dose is just a false narrative that's been promoted by the nuclear power industry. And let me also say that we did Harvey, you may recall, we had a forum when we were fighting the San Onofre nuclear plant. And one of the people who opposed restarting San Onofre was Dr. Paul Mosier, who works at Scripps. And he presented information that showed links to the very lowest doses to breast cancer in women and various other health problems. So I just, just another scientist weighing in about the fact that there is no safe dose.
No, right. Well, a lot of this is you guys heard of hormesis, right? This is not a linear response. This is a response that has peaks and valleys. Yes, it has a low valley, right, where it's underneath what's considered a risk, but it also has this giant peak that had to create that trough. So it's not a linear response. It's not a straight line.
What I want to do here is we will get Joe Mangano back, and we want
And
to have a
ourselves.
deep dive
Right.
at the end
Well,
of another call
right.
with you and Vina and Joe and Myla and other people who have a deep interest in the technical side of the killing power of low-level radiation. I did 2 solid years on this and writing Killing Our Own 25 years ago, and we need to revisit this. So we really
Yeah, it's
appreciate having you with us.
all nuclear reactors are not emission free and they're not carbon free.
Exactly
They
right.
all release radioactive effluents on a routine, normalized discharge basis.
Right. And in 1970, John Goffman, who was the chief health official of the Atomic Energy Commission, said that nuclear power plants in normal activity were killing 32,000 people a year in the United States at a time when there were very much fewer nuclear reactors and they were a lot smaller. So let me set up in an organized fashion a deep dive on this on a future call with you and
Okay.
Joe and Myla, and we'll deal with this. Okay?
Okay. Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you for
You're
joining
welcome.
us. And Mike Hersh, and then we want to go to Carl Grossman because we have a new piece that Carl has just put out, and we want to discuss the green light that Trump is now giving to all nuclear power. Mike, did you have something to say? And I want to go.
I just wanted to thank you, Paul, for that amazing, horrifying, but absolutely essential presentation. And I know, what we're talking about with the nuclear power plants. It's absolutely horrific. And thank you for mentioning the centrifuges and also, these other preliminary processes that go into the whole nuclear industrial complex and just how deadly every step of this is. And I hope you do come back so we can follow up and then get involved on a national basis to shut all this down before it kills us all.
Right. And we want to get
Yeah,
to Carl because we now have a regime in Washington that wants to go exactly the opposite direction. Trump is now talking about 400 gigawatts, 400 atomic reactors in the United States. Right now we have 94, and that doesn't count the centrifuge and all that stuff in
That's
southern
right.
Ohio.
And the mining and all the other,
None of
transporting
that.
it.
And it just drives me crazy every time I see some so-called journalists referring to emission-free nuclear power. There's no
No
such
such
thing.
thing. No such thing.
No such thing as carbon-free
That's
nuclear
right.
power. So, Carl,
And
do you want to? Carl, of course, one of our great esteemed experts and activists on the nuclear issue. He has a belt that has a notch in it that says Shoreham. But Carl, tell us what the regime in Washington has got planned in terms of new nuclear.
Yeah, well, it was last week, and Trump held a press conference. Well, actually, it was in the press conference. It was mostly executives from the nuclear industry in the Oval Office as he signed 4 executive orders. And what one of the orders, in fact, let me just flash the cover of this executive order, if everybody can see it. And what this talks about is, let me read it, ordering the reform of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and regard to dosage, in this executive order, the complaint is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission utilizes safety models that posit there is no safe threshold of radiation exposure, and that harm is directly proportional to the amount of exposure. These models lack sound scientific basis and produce irrational results. I mean, that's long now the scientific determination. Any amount of radiation can kill. And the reform would be for and let me just read it from this order. It wants the United States to become a global leader again in nuclear energy, and for to facilitate this expansion of American nuclear energy capacity from 100 gigawatts in 2024 last year to 400 gigawatts by 2050. I mean, it will be quadrupling the nuclear capacity. And just let me know, this is in the piece I wrote, that on a Joe Rogan podcast last year, Trump said, I think there's a little danger in nuclear, more than a little, but he's acknowledging danger. But now there's been a complete flip, and these four orders, I mean, these four executive orders, one is worse than the other. Deploying advanced reactor technologies for national security is one of the orders. Advanced nuclear reactors have the potential to deliver resilient, secure, and reliable power. And let me just note that the so-called advanced, that new and improved nuclear power plants, just to quote the Union of Concerned Scientists, they did an extensive report, 190 pages, a few years ago, and quoting, found that they are no better, these advanced nuclear power plants, and in some respects significantly worse than the light water reactors in operation today. Another order, reforming reactor testing at the Department of Energy. In other words, it wants the DOE, which is an agency, and when the Atomic Energy Commission was broken up, the NRC was the entity which would regulate nuclear power, and ultimately a Department of Energy to push it. So the DOE would then be involved in to expedite the review, approval, and deployment of advanced reactors. And it goes on and on and on. And just some quotes in my piece. This is Greg Jasko, who's a physicist, says the Trump orders show he is committed to further lawlessness, more nuclear accidents, and less nuclear safety. The executive orders, says Dr. Jasko, look like someone asked AI, how do we make the nuclear industry worse in this country? Tim Judson, of the nuclear executive director of the Nuclear Information and Resource Service, quote in my piece from Tim, which is online, after 70 years of promoting nuclear power, it is still too expensive and produces radioactive waste that will be dangerous for over 1 million years. Trump's executive orders will not fix those problems. There is no fixing or reviving nuclear energy. And here's Paul Gunter. He's the director of the Reactor Oversight Project of the organization Beyond Nuclear, said the order on reforming the NRC most explicitly exposes the Trump administration's deliberate attack upon the public's democratic due process in regard to nuclear technology, nuclear power. So here we are. It's the new nuclear push. The nuclear industry has been pushing what it's been calling a nuclear renaissance, which has not gotten anywhere. But now with Trump and these executive orders, here's the big new push.
Harvey,
You're muted, Sluggo. Still muted,
Thank you,
friend.
Carl. Thank you, Carl. Let's put this in perspective. And we were going to be joined by a fellow from New Jersey who spoke with me this morning. If you want to raise your hand and speak up, but let's put this in perspective. A gigawatt is basically about 1,000 megawatts, and it's essentially the capacity of a nuclear power plant. So the two reactors that just came online in Georgia, a little over a gigawatt each, came in at about $18 billion each. And these are the most recent nuclear power plants built in the United States. So $18 billion a gigawatt times 400 the 300 new one that Trump wants to build. You do the math. I mean, he's talking about what, $5.5 or $6 trillion to build these new nuclear plants. And historically, a large atomic reactor historically comes in at least twice the initial estimate of the cost, and at least many years longer than they are presented to build. So right now in the United States, there are count them, zero large gigawatt-sized nuclear reactors under construction. Not a single one. The two in Georgia that Daniel Blackman is going to contest when he gets on the PSC, hopefully, came in 7 or 8 years late and double or triple the original cost. So what Trump is talking about, with off the cuff of his whatever, another 300 gigawatts of atomic power at 18 billion a gigawatt minimum, most likely double that. You're talking about a project between $5 and $10 trillion minimum. Is that accurate, Carl? Would you say that's a fair off the cuff estimate?
Yeah, it's fair, and I think it's very important to have the comparison here with solar and wind, water, and solar, as Mark Jacobson describes how the cost of safe, clean, green energy, led by wind, water, and solar, has just it's a fraction now of what
Yes.
the cost is of nuclear power. And as Jacobson said in his most recent book, no miracles needed. These green energy technologies can provide all the energy we need and not kill us.
Well, and it's not pie in the sky. I mean, the number one source of new energy production in the world today is wind, water, and solar. And by a factor of 10, the new solar capacity can come online, is coming online. This is not theoretical, is coming online in 2 to 3 years from order to going into production, and it's coming in at 1/10 the cost of nuclear. So I hope people will. We got 72 people with us still, and we visit this quite often, but the numbers are staggering at this point in time. I mean, what Trump is talking about, what the nuclear industry is talking about, is zero large reactors currently under construction, going from that to 300 at a cost that's almost incalculable. And solar, as I say, if you want to order a large solar farm and you've got the money, you can come in at 1/10 the cost of nuclear in 3 years or less. Nobody believes that a large reactor could be built in this country in less than 10 years. I mean, the industry will maybe say 5, but nobody. The history of nuclear power is it comes in at generally double the original cost estimate or more, and generally double the time to build estimate. So what Trump is talking about here with large reactors is patently insane. Carl, do you want to talk a little bit about the small reactors?
Well, the small modular reactors, I mean, that's also mentioned in these. I did one of my television shows, my Enviro close-up TV shows, with Dr. Gordon Edwards. He's out of Canada, and he is very familiar with the history of nuclear technology. President of the the Coalition for Nuclear Responsibility, speaking about how the SMRs and liquid sodium reactors, so some of these other advanced nuclear power systems, they go back decades, and they didn't work decades ago. But again, it's what's being pushed now. Like it's again new and improved, like breakfast cereals is the line. And just let me note who is to profit. This is the end of my piece. I quote, this is a couple of days ago, Yahoo Finance, nuclear stocks extend rally as Trump aims to quadruple, this is the headline, U.S. nuclear capacity by 2050. And then it reports, Yahoo Finance, the stock at Oklo has gained more than 8%, and Constellation Energy, which is the biggest nuclear power plant operator in the U.S., rose more than 3%. Now, guess who was in the Oval Office when Trump made this announcement? Joe Dominguez, president and CEO of Constellation Energy, and Jake DeWitt, CEO of Oklo, along with Maria Korsnick, president and CEO of the Nuclear Energy Institute, the main nuclear power lobbying organization in the U.S. So what he's doing, as with so many things, is to represent these vested interests, pushing awful things, and nuclear power. Nothing comes close to it, in my view, as a deadly, a lethal, awful thing.
Okay. Well, there's Mark Jacobson and there's Carl again. So we have some hands raised, and I can't see them right now. Hold on. But the other thing, just SMR, small modular reactors. Again, I bring this up, and we'll go to Daniela, and then Mike, and then Lynn. You see them mentioned in the media repeatedly as if they exist. There are no small modular reactors that are now operating. They're silly mythological ripoffs, and they are described as being emission-free, which they're not. Certainly not the big ones, and none of the small ones are projected to do other than emit carbon and heat and radiation, and none of them are insured. And this is a bottom line here. And I got to say, back when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was Bobby and was actually out fighting nuclear, he would always start by saying that the nuclear reactors cannot get insurance. And if you're ever asked if a nuclear power plant is safe, your response is, who is insuring them? The nuclear industry in 1957, with the Price-Anderson Act, was exempted from any liability from a major catastrophe. And a couple of years ago, the Congress extended that extension. So for literally a 100-year window, atomic reactors will not have any liability insurance. So if you, God forbid, are downwind from a major accident like we would be in LA when Diablo Canyon blows up, which we know it will, we will lose everything. Your health, your kids, your home, your business, your car. There is no insurance for any of this. And so the real decision as to whether nuclear is safe has come from the insurance industry, which will not get involved. Will not.
And let me know, my first book on nuclear power goes back almost 50 years. Cover Up What You're Not Supposed to Know About Nuclear Power is the title. And you can download for free a copy of the book from my website, carlgrossman.com. And right off in the opening pages of Cover Up, I reprint as a facsimile the nuclear clause, which is what you're talking about here, Harvey. And everybody's homeowners insurance has a nuclear clause in the United States that this policy doesn't cover loss or damage caused by radiation. So, I mean, it isn't like, this is it, the nuclear clause. I mean, I reprint my Allstate homeowners insurance, and I might be in good hands with Allstate if I get into an auto accident, but not if
No.
and
I will
Carl,
say that
real quick,
I'm going to go to Danielle in a minute.
Sure, the good hands wash their hands of any nuclear accident. So we'll just put
Exactly
it that
right.
way.
And
Right.
the Congress was asked again a second time by the utility industry, this time for the small reactors. So in 57, they were asked to exempt large reactors from liability, and now they've gone back to Congress in the last couple of years and exempted small reactors from liability. Daniela Giuseppe, please. Daniela?
Yes. Harvey,
Go
you
ahead.
remember we fought the Tomahawk missiles in New York Harbor and we won. So Governor's Island is now a playground for the arts. And we won against the Tomahawk missiles. We've shut down Indian Point.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that we have already in New Jersey a coalition of 120 environmental groups called EmpowerNewJersey.com. And we've been stopping new fossil fuel projects here. We're suing Governor Murphy. He's good on women's rights and gun safety, but he's terrible on the environment. We've been 120 groups. I'm talking the top Sierra Club, Friends of the Earth, Food and Water Watch, you name them. We're all a part of this huge coalition. And that's what every state should have, a coalition of all its environmental groups. We have pro bono lawyers working with us. We're suing the governor. When he came on board, there were 12 new projects for fossil fuels. We've already shut down 4 of them, and we're working on shutting down all of them. Of course, he's leaving, and I think the new governor might even be more in accord with us. But this coalition has been working. And I think we can win the battle against New Nuke for all the reasons you already have been saying. But
Well, it's all money. It's all about money.
I know
at
it's
this
all
point.
about profiteering, but let me
Here
ask
we are in a movement where
Right.
the entire market is on our side.
Right. Let me ask you another question because I'm sorry I came in late. And I love this group. This is the group I really belong in because I'm a climate leadership speaker and I go all over the place on environmental issues. I want to ask you, are you aware, everyone, of the clause on page 153 in the big new ugly, bad, beautiful bill, which will cripple the courts? There is a clause in there we have to fight, and there are 7 Republicans we can call about it who are dubious because it raises the national debt by 4.2 trillion. And soon we already have 35 trillion in debt, and soon the interest rate will be 15%. It'll bankrupt the country and the world. And so we have about 6 or 7 Republicans who are dubious about it. But in there on page 153 is tucked this little clause which will neuter the courts. And the courts are all we've got so far. And it says that the courts will no longer be able to declare contempt of court to any of these lawsuits against the Trump administration. Are you aware of that and how we have to work on that right now, or it cripples everything else in our resistance?
Well, Lynn Feinerman mentioned stuff like that. We're going to have to next week start out and really dissect this bill because there seems to be a lot more in there than just the money. And
Okay, well, meantime, I will send you and you can send out this page 153 clause that has been exposed and written up, and we're all trying to fight that. And of course, we're going to have No King's Day on June 14, which we will all join through whatever, we can join it through PDA or we can join it through invisible.org.
Indivisible.
Indivisible, I meant to say. Oh my God.
We want indivisible to be visible.
Very, very
Yeah, we
visible.
want indivisible
Right.
to be visible. And it comes, of course, as you all know, from one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. So
That's
we all
right.
want to go to indivisible.org and find an action or a protest near us. If you go to their website, you put in your zip code and they hook you up with other people in your neighborhood that you can do peaceful protest. It's nonpartisan, it's peaceful protest, and it's going to happen all over the country on June 14, as many of you probably know.
And
Great.
Daniela, real quick, I'm
Yes.
so impressed with the great work you're doing in New Jersey. If we could do a deep dive on that coalition, if you could bring some of your friends with you, and we could have a clinic of how to fight back against these carbon and nuclear
Well,
fuel
I've been with
programs.
them for 6 years, and I can explain. Right here in my senior
Now,
community.
not right now, not right now.
No, I know, but I'm
We-
not
but we'd
sure I
like-
have 6 others, but I'll try. I should
Yes,
get the head
please.
of Food
It
and
does-
Water Watch. They're the
Yeah,
most
Food and Water Watch is great. If you can bring any of these people with us, we can do a deep dive, and we can call it the New Jersey plan. And every state in the union can follow in the footsteps of New Jersey.
Yeah,
Just like with
120 top. We have Friends of the Earth. We have
Yeah, no, you told us
everybody.
it's super
Yeah,
amazing.
but here's one other thing I want to quickly mention.
Oh.
They're going to start these hydrogen hubs. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, we've done a deep dive on that,
Okay,
and
good.
it needs to be shut down. But
Good.
you're absolutely
Absolutely.
right. And Daniela, bring in, it doesn't have to be 6 people, 1 or 2 people presenting along with you. You do a terrific job as well, and you can teach the rest of the country how you're doing such a great job in Jersey. Like Bruce Springsteen. You get.
Well, I'll tell you one
you're
thing
the
we do, which
bosses.
is, I can tell you one thing we do, which is very quick. Every Monday, we have Moratorium Monday, moratorium on new fossil fuel projects. Everybody picks up the phone and they go to a number at Empower New Jersey, which tells you exactly what to say, and then they hook you to the governor. But we also have a lawsuit. So, we have moratorium Mondays where everybody calls the governor and says, no new fossil fuel projects. And you first go to the number for Empower New Jersey. They tell you exactly what to say. And this way they can make a count of all the.
Thank you so much. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's great. Well,
That is
listen,
wonderful.
in New Jersey, we have Bruce, and not only do we have pro bono lawyers, but we also have Bono himself, who's a pretty good environmentalist. So we got a good team here. Danielle, it's always great to hear from you. I am in New Jersey as we speak. I had a guy I was on with this morning from New Jersey, but his name escapes me. Don't. If you're with this guy, raise your hand, please. Mike, and then we'll go to Lynn, and then Steve, and we're almost out of time, folks. Another incredible session, really phenomenal. We still have 64 people with us. Mike, go ahead. Then.
Well, I'd like to defer to Lynn and then Heidi again, and hear what
Okay, go ahead, Lynn, and then Heidi.
Hear from some brilliant women on this.
Thank
Lynn?
you, Mike. Thank you. I just would like to say that we've got some really powerful rock star people who are beginning to realize that they've got to come out and be really, really strong. So I would suggest that we start talking to them, talking to the boss, talking to Miss Swift, and asking them if they would be interested in trying to help shut this nuclear thing down. It was extremely effective what you, Harvey, did back in the days with Bonnie Raitt and everybody else. It really worked to bring public attention and pressure to shut down these ideas and these plans. So I would just suggest that we begin considering getting in touch with Bono and whoever else can really put us into a public spotlight. So because nobody is really considering these things. I mean, Karl is pointing something out that's extremely important, and it gets very little play because we're so inundated.
Well, what's amazing to me is how deep in economic la-la land the nuclear proposals are. None of these guys ever do the numbers. I mean, it's mind-boggling. The small reactor stuff, which does emit carbon and does kill people, is completely uneconomical. And you know, the one great miracle of our careers, Carl and all the rest of us who've been on this so long, is that the cost of renewable energy has just plummeted. You know, it's like Mother Earth really wants us to do this economically. I mean, I went to the University of Chicago for grad school, and I met Milton Friedman, the great guru of the free market, and he would be totally anti-nuclear today to follow his, you know, his ideas about market economy. So, Heidi Vertailer, we're down to the last 10 minutes. Let's hear from you, please. You're in Maine, Heidi, and you're a lawyer.
No, I'm not a lawyer. I wish.
How
but
dare you, Sluggo?
you play one on TV. So, but go ahead, Heidi. Yes.
No, but I know some lawyers, but I'm looking for a human rights lawyer if anybody knows. At any rate, but the question I had, I wanted to let people know that I dropped a link into the Clamshell Alliance, the group that helped to stop the Seabrook nuclear power plant in New Hampshire here.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, we
Back in
stopped
the
Unit 2. We didn't get Unit 1, but we did get Unit 2.
right, but I saw that we had a screening of it this here in Portland, Maine this last weekend.
Yeah,
And
the
they're
movie is
looking for
called
more
Far Out.
opportunities.
The movie is called Far Out. We call it the Naked Hippie movie. If anybody
Yeah.
wants to see it, you can email me and I'll send you a link.
Now the other question, well, that's in my link that I threw in there, so you can see it. But my question is that I live in Maine where I have some cachet, not maybe a lot, but just a little bit with Susan Collins, because I've been a Democrat that has been listening to her.
She is
And
one of the swing senators that we're all looking at to show a little bit of courage on this. And if you can talk to her woman to woman and get her to stand up to the abuse of Trump, then that would be wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
is there any way that I can talk with you folks to get some training before I go, or briefings or something that I could do before I go and talk with her?
Sure.
Other
If you want
people.
to email me, I can get you up to speed. But believe me, you present well enough on your own. We could give you talking points and all that. But you are 10 out of 10 when it comes to expressing yourself clearly.
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that. So
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much. That's can I call you on this, Mike?
Absolutely. Drop me an email. But I
Great.
did write this blog about some of the horrors in the budget. There's too many to list in a series of blogs, but if you could just reference that to her and
Okay.
let her know that people are going to be put out on the streets in Maine. Um, Hospitals are going to shut down and assisted living centers are going to shut down.
So listen,
Yeah.
next week we want to get into the full horror of this bill. I don't think it will have. But we pray it won't have passed the Senate. Lynn and Mike, if we want to do a deep dive on the ancillary horrors of this terrible bill, we will go into to do the deep dive next week in the first hour after we revisit Walpole, Maine, Oregon. Go ahead, Lynn. And then we'll go to Steve Caruso, and then Danielle, and we're almost done. Go ahead, Lynn. Oh,
Lynn, I
you're
don't think
okay?
she has her hand up.
I think
Okay,
Lynn already went.
Steve Caruso, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, I just cannot stomach giving credence to the insurrectionists that are in Congress and have been let into Congress since Nancy Pelosi was in charge. The fact that this illegitimate resident is in office is a pivotal point. He needs to be impeached, absolutely. The other thing, and it's absolutely minor compared to what I just said. Paul Mobley is texting me all the time, and he needs to text everybody, and
Yeah,
not
Paul.
just me. Please stop. Everybody, select everybody.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And
Thanks.
Sluggo, I've got a couple words real quick about this brutal budget bill, and also about the numbers in the whole nuclear power situation. The numbers they're looking at isn't profitability or saving money for consumers or Lord knows how to deal with the climate crisis. Those aren't the numbers Trump and his cronies are looking at. They're looking at personal enrichment. And if the government, yes, if the government overspends
As
a lot of
opposed to the
money,
enrichment at Portsmouth, which enriches uranium, they want to enrich themselves personally.
that's right. They want to enrich themselves through these enrichment plants, these nuclear power plants. And the more money that's wasted, the more grifting can be done in the shadows. It's a very simple scheme. It's the oldest thing. I think that Hammurabi might have originated this by overcharging on the canals or something. But it is when a lot of money is sloshing around, a lot of it seems to fall off into certain people's hands. This is nothing but a smash and grab on a grand scale. And that's the numbers that they care about. They don't care that the free market would say nuclear is too expensive, let alone polluting, let alone toxic, let alone causes dangerous mutations and cancers and all that other stuff. They don't care about any of that. It's just money, 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 and how they can get it. And I wasn't even aware that that homeowners are facing ruin because of the uninsurability of nuclear power. That's another thing on me. So thank you for bringing that up, Carl. You only brought it up, what, 40 years ago, did you say?
1980.
1980. So I'm just learning about this now. So thank you. It just goes to show, as bad as you think it is, it's worse.
Well, the bottom line is when the nuclear industry was first pushing the utilities came and they said we will not build nuclear plants because we can't absorb the liability.
That's right.
When it blows up, and so they passed the Price-Anderson Act that exempted the
That's right.
owner of nuclear power plants from any liability. And then it came, deja vu all over again when they started talking about small reactors, which were ridiculous. The issue came up again, and Congress repeated history and said, okay, the small reactors are also exempt from any liability. So, here we are. And we just saw this play out in LA with these horrible fires. The people who lost their home,
That's right.
they're getting zip. They're getting completely screwed.
Well, about this brutal budget bill and the Judiciary Evisceration Act and whatever you want to call it, they're pressuring the Senate to pass it by July 4th. They're heavily into that symbolism, and they're trying to short circuit the committee processes. But we will be able to spend about a month fighting against this.
Let's next week we will start with Waldport, Oregon, and get updated, and then we'll go. We want to do the deep dive on this bill. So everybody do your homework and let's look into this, all aspects of this nightmare.
Okay, I have something very quick to say.
Please.
Rutgers University has one of the best environmental departments in the country. It put solar parking lots on all its campuses. It's saving $25 million in less than a decade. And I think that universities can be approached because solar is so cheap. We have a fabulous company that did all these parking lots for Rutgers, 13 campuses. So I wanted you to know that. And please let me talk about that horrible clause that will neuter the judiciary next week.
All right, we'll start with that.
week.
After we go to Waldport next week, we'll do the deep dive. So everybody, please do your homework. We will deal with it. By the way, the parking lot I want to put solar panels on is at Dodger Stadium, which would be just totally change the dynamic of Los Angeles. My dream is to get to Magic Johnson, and who's a part owner of the Dodgers, and get that going. If you ever fly into LA, you look down at Dodger Stadium. It's a huge parking lot. It'd
Yep.
absolutely be covered with solar panels. Anyway, that's it. Listen, folks, this has been another amazing session. As always, we love you all. We still have, God, amazing 59 people. We have the longest attention span in America, and we'll be back again next week at Waldport, and then again with this big bill, and we'll get an update on the PSC race in Georgia as well. Thank you, Mila. Tatanka, great to see everybody. Hetty, enjoy yourself overseas there, and no nukes, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Big thanks to Steve Caruso doing a great job as
Steve,
always.
thank you for your engineering. We really appreciate it. We also next week, I want to get an update on Pacifica. So Tatanka and Mila will talk about that as well, and Dr. Nancy. Okay, everybody, no nukes.
No nukes.
See you next week.
Stay well, everybody.